Hey everyone, my name is Sherry Stoka, and I'm going to talk about preventing weight gain after semaglutide. So there's a lot of news out there. There's people talking about statistically when patients go off of semaglutide, they're gaining the weight back. So, this kind of creates this message that you need to be on it long term. And so I'm going to kind of go through our experience. We've been using semaglutide at Weightless MD for almost a year now. I've had a ton of success. But we have also had a lot of success in helping our patients keep the weight off afterwards. So I'm going to go through a number of things, really helping you understand foundationally what semaglutide does, and again, how you keep it off after. And this really could apply to any type of weight loss program. So just to get us all on the same playing field here, so semaglutide, we use Wegovy. It's an FDA-approved medication for chronic weight management and type 2 diabetes. It's a weekly subcutaneous injection. So the main mechanisms are that this synthetic hormone, GLP-1, or glucagon-like peptide, it actually stimulates a part of the brain that controls the appetite. So it's going to reduce your appetite. It also enhances the insulin sensitivity. And this is really, really, really important. And I'm going to talk a little bit about this because people aren't really talking about this piece to it. And it's more important actually than the appetite suppressing component. Semaglutide also slows gastric emptying, so that can also play a role in, appetite and reducing food intake. The clinical uses or the FDA approval are for diabetes, type 2 diabetes, or for weight management, which is more chronic. So somebody who is looking to use this, they haven't been diagnosed with diabetes yet, but they have metabolic dysfunction. So they have a comorbid condition, whether it's hypertension, dyslipidemia, hypercholesterolemia, whatever you want to call it, they have something else. So metabolically, there's some dysfunction. So just to touch a little bit on type 2 diabetes, because I understand that there's going to be, patients or consumers watching this. And just to help you understand, again, type 2 diabetes is a chronic medical condition that really causes sugar to build up in your bloodstream. So this is due to insulin resistance. So what happens in diabetes is the insulin doesn't work properly. So when you eat sugar or you eat, something that breaks down to sugar, your blood sugars spike. The blood sugars, in the blood need to be removed by the insulin. So what happens over time is that the cells stop responding to insulin, so this sugar stays in the blood for too long, and that becomes very, very toxic and very inflammatory. So the body really needs to remove the sugar, and since the cells aren't responding to the insulin, the sugar will actually be converted to triglycerides or fat, and they will be kind of pushed into the visceral or other areas of the body as fat stores. So this type of fat becomes very toxic and again, very inflammatory. So this is a condition that definitely involves metabolic dysfunction. We're going to talk a little bit about, how these metabolic conditions can start way before you actually go in and get a diagnosis of type 2 diabetes. Metabolic syndrome, which maybe most people are familiar with, but that is when you have multiple metabolic issues. So you have the blood sugar dysregulation. So again, dysregulation may not mean exactly type 2 diabetes, a diagnosis of type 2 diabetes, but it's leading up to that. And then you have hyperlipidemia. Maybe you're taking medication for that. You're taking medication for hypertension, hyperglycemia, which is elevated blood sugars. And then also if you have like a, high waist circumference, that, all of these things, or like three out of four of these would indicate more of like the metabolic syndrome. So I believe that glycemic variability is a piece to the root problem. It's not the entire root problem to obesity and type 2 diabetes, but I hope that I can help you kind of understand why it is so important to understand to know what our blood sugars are doing during the day, and how this affects insulin, and then, kind of relate it back to semaglutide. Because again, the majority of us don't really know what our blood sugars are doing throughout the day. So we know that the SAD diet, the standard American diet, is full of sugar. It is full of sugar. So whether we know it or not, we are probably eating sugar all day long. So over time, that has really paid its price. And if you look at this is, you see the green shaded area. Those are blood sugars between 60 and 120. So that is kind of where you want to stay all day long. You might go a little bit higher when you eat a meal, but then that should come down and stabilize. What is happening now is that people and their poor eating, sugar all day long, too much of it, we're getting these more drastic spikes. So these spikes are going up to 150, sometimes going up to 200. So all day long, these blood sugar spikes are calling on insulin to come along, take the sugar out of the bloodstream, put it into the cells to be used for energy. But again, when you get to this kind of like pre-diabetic state or diabetes, insulin stops, the cells stop responding to insulin. And it really is because insulin is becoming now desensitized. It's been overused, and the cells are like, we can't keep up with this. So again, this is now when the sugar has to go elsewhere. And that's where it starts to convert. It starts to become very damaging to the body. So glycemic variability causes insulin resistance or sensitivity, whatever you want to call it. It starts the cascade of systemic inflammation in the body. It causes a dysregulation of hormones, highly correlated with the hormones that drive the sugar cravings. The stress hormones are also very much involved in this glycemic variability. And it produces the inflammatory fat stores. So we like to use this image that we created to help educate our patients, because all of our programs are designed to go after this very damaging visceral fat. The visceral fat is, again, it's called visceral because it's around the viscera. It surrounds our vital organs, our liver, our intestines, our gallbladder, etc. And when you have a layer of fat, or many layers of fat that surround your vital organs, the organs don't work as well. So it produces inflammatory compounds. And so this fat becomes just a different entity of its own. It's very different than this subcutaneous fat, which is the pinchable fat. So this pinchable fat you don't like it, it doesn't look good, but it's not as damaging. This is a very, very different fat. And this is a fat that now becomes resistant for the body to use for energy. And again, the body does that to protect it because it's inflammatory. It has, this is where it stores all of the toxins and preservatives and chemicals and such. So that's why the majority of people have such a hard time losing weight. It is because of these different type of fat stores. So again, glycemic dysregulation is the beginning of that inflammatory state. It kind of puts your body into chronic, like low-grade inflammation that obviously starts manifesting into other conditions. So again, you might not have received the diagnosis of type 2 diabetes quite yet, but maybe you're dealing with some of, these other inflammatory conditions. So the point of all of this is really helping you understand that semaglutide is going to help with the blood sugar dysregulation. And by doing that, it's really going to help resolve some of these other issues. It'll make more sense as they go along. So semaglutide works for so many people because the majority of people let me stick to the slide. Over 128 million people have prediabetes or diabetes. So it's going to help a lot of people. UNC School of Global Public Health recently did a research that demonstrated that 88% of Americans have some type of metabolic dysfunction. So the majority of us have some type of metabolic dysfunction without even knowing it, because we're not looking for these things. We're being medicated for it. It's estimated that 80% of people with prediabetes don't even know it. And the majority of these people they do have comorbidities. They have high triglycerides, high cholesterol, high blood pressure, etc. And like I said, nobody knows what that means. Semaglutide, like I said, addresses the root if your root issue for weight loss resistance is metabolic dysfunction. So what semaglutide actually does is improves the insulin sensitivity. So now sugar can actually enter the cells to be used for energy. So if you get the sugar to go into the cells to be used for energy, you're not going to have the sugar converted into fat and stored in the visceral fat. So now this is a very normal process. These results are even greater if you follow a more balanced diet. We have some patients that are taking semaglutide and they are choosing not to improve their diet. And they're not seeing the results that they would like to see. And again, your body, if you're still eating high carbs, high sugar, high processed food, you may get a little benefit from the semaglutide, but you're not going to see the results as if you would, really clean up your diet. Appetite suppression and fullness definitely helps with diet adherence while you're on the semaglutide. And you start to feel better pretty quickly because when you have blood sugar balance, so many other things improve. So this is what begins to happen when you start to regulate your blood sugars. You have more sustainable energy because you're not getting those highs and lows. Those highs and lows are so detrimental to our health. If you have high blood sugars, you can't burn fat because the body is literally always going to go for the sugar that's available. You have to be able to remove the sugar. By removing the sugar, you're going to reduce inflammation in the body. By reducing inflammation in the body, you're going to reduce cholesterol. And by the way, cholesterol is not due to high dietary cholesterol or high fat. It is due to high sugar. And that is an absolute fact. And, all of this information that has been given to us throughout the years that we have to control cholesterol is just completely not true. And it is driven by the higher powers. When you have better blood sugar control, lipids actually begin to normalize as well. And you start to see things start to balance out. It is quite amazing what you can do when you start to improve metabolic dysfunction. And really what I mean by that is the root in getting those blood sugars balanced. So will this work for most, or will this work for you? If you have metabolic dysfunction, which I'm going to, again, outline what that actually means, then yes, it will most likely work for you. If you have underlying gut issues, you're going to struggle. because this medication acts on the gut hormones. And typically people that have imbalances in their gut, they struggle. People that have issues with their pancreas, pancreatitis, they're really going to struggle. So sometimes we really do need to look deeper. And I'm talking about weight loss all the time and how it is multifactorial. And there are other components. It's not just the metabolic dysfunction piece. There's your gut health, your hormones. Are you still consuming foods that you're sensitive to, that's causing, more inflammation, more immune responses? Are you eating processed foods? So there are other things that come into play when you are talking about weight loss. So what type of diet do we suggest people go on while they are on semaglutide? So we are providing a balanced lower carb diet, because a lower carb diet is going to give them better results. Again, carbohydrates are sugar. So if you're eating sugar all day long, you're not going to see the results that you want. The nice thing is that this does not require extreme calorie reduction or restriction at all. You can eat a very normal, healthy diet and lose a good amount of weight. Frequent eating. So for anyone who has metabolic dysfunction, really should not be eating frequently. I don't care how healthy the food is. So we are really helping people start to change the way they eat, especially when they finish semaglutide. Because if you're somebody who eats 3 meals a day and snacks and grabs food all day long, that will keep you in that cycle of metabolic dysfunction or blood sugar dysregulation. And exercise on semaglutide is super duper important, because that's also going to enhance the insulin sensitivity. All right, so the question that remains is, what happens when you stop semaglutide? And the answer really depends on your metabolic health. It also really depends on what you lost. Did you lose muscle? Did you lose fat? Did you lose visceral fat? So all of that is super important. We're measuring and analyzing those metrics for our patients, because I give the example all the time, but if you lose 20 pounds and 10 of it is muscle, well, then you're actually in a worse state of health. So you really do need to know what you're losing. Do you still have blood sugar dysregulation? Are you still unable to really get those blood sugars to stabilize? Do you have chronic inflammation? Are you taking meds for all of those lifestyle diseases? So these are all questions that you really need to ask when you are weaning or getting off of semaglutide. So some signs of metabolic dysfunction would be sugar cravings after a meal, sugar cravings that aren't relieved by eating sweets, fatigue after meals, brain fog, visual problems. If you're going into your doctor and they're doing a fasting blood sugar and it's 90 or higher, that's usually an indication of metabolic dysfunction or glycemic variability. High cholesterol, if you're being treated for high cholesterol, blood pressure, other medications for the lifestyle diseases, then that's metabolic dysfunction. So the goal for you really should be getting off of those medications, because those medications are making your labs look good, but they're doing nothing for healing your body. And we recently put together a metabolic health quiz. So to really help you determine where you're at after you complete a program, or even before you complete a program, you can complete this metabolic health quiz. And that's going to give you a good indication of your vulnerability to gain the weight back, because it really is entirely up to you. Weight does not have to come back. I mean, the whole point is to get your body back in that balanced state. And unfortunately, the majority of us are not healthy. Even if we lose 20 to 40 pounds, we're still not at the place where we need to be to prevent weight gain. So to reiterate some of the ways to keep the weight off, I hope that you have really committed to make some changes, because again, you really do need to change some things in your life. And if you don't and try to go back to what you were doing, you absolutely will gain the weight back. We provide different ways of helping people. So some things that we will provide for our patients is different supplements that actually will mimic what semaglutide does. So that can be very helpful. We have different eating plans for sustainable weight loss. So again, really helping people change not only what they eat, but change how often they eat. That's really, really important. We also offer a low-dose semaglutide maintenance program. We encourage people to come in every month for the body composition analysis, and we are talking to them about exercise and just other lifestyle behaviors as well. Because really, it is kind of looking at everything. It's not about, being perfect and doing everything right, but it is about changing in certain areas, and then things will begin to just progress as you start to lose weight and feel better. So again, I am going to leave a link to our metabolic dysfunction quiz. You can certainly complete that, and we are going to have somebody reach out and let you know kind of where you fall as far as your vulnerability. And if you're interested, you can also schedule a free consult. I will leave that link in below as well. And so that wraps it up. I hope that was helpful for you, and hope to see you soon.